Welcome to the subscribers only episode. Hit it, Dave. Stop calling me at 1 in the morning.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to On the Fringe. This is a very sleepy Dave who got to spend the night at DFW Airport, courtesy of American Airlines. Thank you very much.
Wow. DFW,
Yeah,
is that David Foster Wallace Airport?
it should be. It would be a pretty cool place. Unfortunately, it was the behemoth in the Metroplex, Dallas Fort Worth.
Oh
And
boy.
yeah, and what we're talking about today on the Fringe actually ties into Dallas. We're talking
It
about
does.
a basketball player named Jared Shaw who grew up in Dallas and who was just arrested in Indonesia for importing drugs. And this episode is very, very important. It's probably the most critical piece of information that we're going to tell you guys for anybody that wants to travel or go abroad. Do not mess around with drugs while you're in a foreign country, even if they're legal in another country, because you can potentially have your life destroyed or potentially, like Jared here, he may get the death penalty. My guess would be no, but it's still a possibility.
It's
So,
a distinct possibility. And unfortunately, you and I both have memories of living in Indonesia in 2015
mhm.
when some of the was the Bali 5 or the Bali 6?
The Bali
I
Nine, I
think
think.
I think it was the Bali 9. There were a lot of people in Bali, and unfortunately, some of them, Australian citizens, did get the death penalty and were executed. You're absolutely right. This is very important. Know the law, please, wherever you live. Jared Dwayne Shaw of Dallas, formerly of Dallas, I suppose, was arrested on May 7th. And, this is different than most sort of locked up abroad cases, I guess, Dave.
Yeah, I'm
Because,
with you.
yeah, this is just a little different because he's lived there a while. He's lived there over 2 years. He's been there since 2022. He's not some random dude. He's a player in the Indonesian, or he was a player in the Indonesian league, Indonesian basketball league. He's a former U.S. college player. He's a very good one from all accounts. Um, and you know, what was the chain of events here, Dave? Just break it down for us.
So, from my understanding, he ordered candies from Thailand. He had 130 plus pieces of candy that was laced with
Mm.
Delta 9 THC. So some drug
Well,
residue.
let's be clear. Let's be clear, Dave. Just for
Hmm.
all the people tuning in who might know about this, Delta 9 and THC are two different things. They're both different chemicals
Hmm.
that are commonly found in cannabis and cannabinoid products. And things get marketed with Delta 9, things get marketed with THC. They're two distinct things, easy to get in Thailand now, where you have the most liberal drug laws in the region and actually really in the world in some ways. Um, Easy to get, totally legal there. Issue was he had them shipped and he
Yeah.
had them shipped to his address.
Yeah.
So they were picked up at the airport. Not good.
Yeah. You don't want to mess with customs in a foreign country, especially if you're
No.
living there, just traveling there. You're going to be there short term. If you're doing import export stuff, yes, you're going to have to deal with them. Nothing against the customs officers. They're doing their job. But generally, in some places, I would say generally in most places, it's very slow and painstaking. to deal with customs. And customs flagged his package from Thailand to Indonesia. They set up a sting
Mhm.
operation and they showed up his address, basically dropped the package off, and then they promptly arrested him for importing the candies. And despite what he said he wasn't going to sell it. He said it was basically gifts for his friends and his teammates. That's not going to fly in Indonesia. And by all
No.
accounts, he was beloved by his team. He was beloved by Indonesians, but still, he broke the law. And by breaking the law, he's been banned from the basketball league in Indonesia, and he's very likely going to spend a lot of time behind bars.
This is just an incredibly unfortunate situation because, again, there's really no one who has a bad word to say about the guy. And I think it highlights the fact that, look, if you're going to Southeast Asia, because this is not specific to Indonesia at this point, if you're going to Southeast Asia, you need to be aware what you're getting into. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people go there and they go, oh, Thailand. Well, Thailand's liberal drug laws are relatively recent, and the rest of the region is not there. Some areas are relatively lax with enforcement. Cambodia, I'm looking at you. Um, but
Probably Laos as well, I would think, if you
I
know the
would
right people.
suspect if you know the right people and if you're in the right place, I would imagine in the north, no one really gives a shake of a lamb's tail. Um, but in the rest of the region and anywhere where you have a law enforcement presence, it, you know, in le well, actually, in some parts of Indonesia, even alcohol is probably not a great idea. But
Hmm.
if you have anything that resembles a narcotic or you encounter it, just stay away. It's not worth it. Even I think people even go to Bali and they go, well, Bali's this very liberal place, very open. It's still in Indonesia. It's still following Indonesian laws. Do not be stupid.
And they
Um,
still catch people every single week that are
oh my gosh,
importing
yeah.
ketamine or MDMA or weed or whatever. And you've seen a couple of videos about this guy. Jared's been paraded around Indonesian media, and they will
It,
do the same thing to you
yes.
if they catch you.
Do not put yourself in that situation. If you want that experience, there are a lot of other places where you can do it without so much troubling your conscience and potentially troubling you in prison. You don't want to go to prison. You really don't want to go to prison in Indonesia or anywhere in Southeast Asia, I would say. And this is a reminder, be absolutely sure you know what you're doing in terms of recreational substances. This was,
Hmm.
and you know what? I believe the guy when he says, well, I imported it. It was legal on their end. I didn't realize it was illegal over here. I'm not planning on selling it. The issue was and I mean, who knows what the interrogation was like, but in the interview, he apparently said, I was just going to give it to friends. I was just going to distribute it. Don't say that. You've just copped to distribution.
Hmm.
Even if you preface it with, I wasn't planning on selling it, if you go, I was going to hand it out to people, that is, again, just not going to go well. So, for Jared's sake, I hope there is a out at the end of this. I hope there is hopefully a deportation order in his short-term future because otherwise, yeah, this is a very unsettling and unfortunate situation. But as you said, it's a much more common one than you might think. And
Yeah.
I think really why this is getting as much press as it is, something you pointed out, there are some parallels with the Brittany Griner story. Um, which I think has caught the attention of people in the States.
I think it's this is a totally different kettle of fish though than Brittany Griner. Brittany
Well,
Griner, she had a few grams of weed, and the Russians basically arrested her because they're like, yeah, we can get her, and we can basically get somebody else from the states that we want back to Russia.
it's the superficialities of the story, though. You have an
Yeah.
American basketball player, they're abroad, they get nabbed for a weed-related crime.
Hmm. Yep. On
Uh,
this on the surface, there definitely is a similarity between the two.
when you look at it, though, that similarity really collapses because, again, this guy was established. Also, just the importation angle. Again,
Hmm.
I've heard a lot of stories of this, but the bringing it in the country and the actual, I mean, first of all, the Indonesian police setting up a sting, that's a very different scenario than what happened to Miss Griner.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
Anyway, yeah,
one more thing I was gonna say is that if you do travel to countries in Southeast Asia, if you go to Singapore, for example, if you have drugs in your system, if you go to China and you have drugs in your system, if you go to Japan, if you go to Korea and you have drugs in your system, and those countries find out that you have them in your system, then they can arrest you, lock you up, and at best just deport you. So be very careful if you use recreational drugs in Asia.
be be careful and know where you are. Know where you are. That's an
Mhm.
important thing in the world today. You have to know where you are. Sound like a mantra. You have to know exactly where you are. On a serious note, though, uh, I really hope um, I really hope Mr. Shaw gets out. This is a terrible situation to be in. Just for those of you listening, don't put yourself in this situation.
Hmm.
Um, be very aware of where you are and be very aware of the legal system. Whether you think it's fair or not, if you're there, it will be applied to you one way or another.
Yep. And if
So,
you have to encounter that, don't do it alone. Call the embassy of your country
yes.
and have the police or have whoever arrested you notify your embassy. Your embassy will not be able to get you out, but they will be able to get you in touch with a lawyer who will explain the legal process.
And yeah, and in a case like this, at the very least, they may give you some positive press, which I think Mr. Shaw needs at this point.
Yep. Yep.
Anyways, a cautionary tale. Um, please pay attention. And from On the Fringe, thank you very much. Like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with your enemy, share it with that weird dude who hangs out at the opera with a mask on and plays organ all the time. Phantom of the Opera, shout out to you. Proud member of the On the Fringe community.
Ooh,
Anyway, unofficial endorsement. Phantom of the Opera. So please, please subscribe. Thank you very much. This is On the Fringe.
and most importantly, travel safe.
Please.